Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it shouldn't be a secret. 2025 was an atrocity because it was looking so good early on. I started to upload YouTube videos again and was super pumped about it. I really wanted to accomplish a lot. Unfortunately, shit hit the fan and I didn't upload anything for a good 7 months. But if there was anything that never let me down, it is of course music. Now, I wouldn't say this year was on the level of 2024, but it was pretty fun and eventful. Basically, if it wasn't for the music that dropped this year, I probably wouldn't have survived midway through. It was fun joining discussions and listening to all the new projects in the Discord server, which you can join in the description, by the way. And one thing's for sure, this year has sparked a lot of crazy debates. This video only hopes to add more fuel to that fire. So let's not waste any more time, no honorable mentions. These are my top 15 favorite albums and EPs of 2025. Yeah, you saw that correctly. Listen, I don't know what people were expecting to dismiss this as just another generic attempt at alt-rock. It's a huge shift from Twice's typical dance pop sound, sure, but give them props for being a group that's willing to dive into fresh new concepts. They've definitely had more iconic concepts when they perfected their high-energy pop sound and reached peak heights. But honestly, I don't know how you can call Enemy uninteresting in the grand scheme of things. If anything, this is one of their most creative works yet musically. The biggest thing working in Enemy's favor is that it feels like Twice has the freedom to really tackle songs and make sure they put in the work with the details when it comes to songwriting or having fun with the pop rock sound mixed with a bit of R&B and balladry. And they do it in a way that feels sincere and true to the band's best strengths. For one, the title track is genuinely special. It's one of the strongest rock ballads they've ever done, and it's wild that it exists on such a low-key release. The music video sells this quiet defiance to it without really overselling the angst, just this feeling of standing your ground when things get messy. One thing that Enemy does better than This Is For is certainly having more hard-hitting writing. And I just gotta say it, there's a reason Diane is my bias. Her pen game adds a layer of warmth and honesty that's very hard to fake. It's why Glow feels intimate without being corny. It's easily one of the most underrated songs in their catalog this year. I will be frothing at the mouth for a Diane solo album in 2026. And when the album wants to let loose, you get bangers like Blind in Love, Like One, and then my favorite song here, Fine. Gio, Mina, and Diane absolutely destroy this song, especially in that addicting bridge. I can't get it out of my head. Enemy isn't necessarily Twice at their most flashy, because there are definitely more upbeat songs on This Is For. But that's exactly why it works, and I still found it to be an entry that's quite memorable for their catalog.
Yeah. This the way God planned it, hope you can't stand it, we don't die, we multiply like rabbits.
Some artist-producer duos just refuse to miss. Freddie Gibbs and The Alchemist might be the best example. Alfredo 2 doesn't try to fully duplicate what they did on the first album. Freddie and The Alchemist understand that the chemistry is already there, and instead they settle into a more relaxed, late-night energy that could not sound more lush. The beats are smoother, hazier, almost luxurious, and not a single one sounds like filler. I love the subtle sonic details that Alchemist puts in his beats. You hear Japanese-inspired textures and loops that sneak up in your ears while listening. Every beat feels intentional, and you can feel that Freddie sounds completely calm and collected here. Ensalada has to be one of my favorite rap songs of the year. Freddie is super grounded with his flow as he talks about survival and pressure, and then he combines that with one of my favorite Anderson .Paak hooks ever. Shangri-La is a good standout that flips the idea of escape and paradise into something hollow and transactional. Then you've got a song like Gold Feet, and I'll just say, it's impossible to not go ballistic over a JID feature. 1,000 Mountains closes things with the finest self-reflection verses that Freddie spits on here. That spoken word sample near the end really stuck with me, as it really fits in the ruthlessness of Freddie as an MC. If a man lets another man take care of him, he shouldn't be offended or get upset whenever he gets treated like a bitch. Alfredo 2 is an album where you can just hit play and let the content speak for itself. In a year where hip-hop discourse loves extremes, this album shows that consistency and chemistry can take you a long way. If you need further proof that hip-hop is still one of the best genres in the world, this is it. Now I know what you might be thinking. Who the hell is Hosimachi Suisei? Hosimachi Suisei is a VTuber turned into aspiring musician. But you know what? I was still willing to give it a chance. Never judge a book by its cover, never judge an artist by their other professions. So I decided to press play. And next thing you know, my jaw was on the floor. Now look, I'm aware criticism of this album is all over the place. Everyone seems to have a different opinion on it. Most think at best it's a mixed bag. That's fine. All I'll say is this, I was never going to dig deep for this genre and have an interest in it all by myself. This was my first time listening to VTuber music, which I honestly thought sounded like another slop genre. It probably still is, to be honest, but the fact that this album is on this list speaks volumes to how insane this listen was for me. The first thing you notice is that this sound palette sounds huge. She blended elements of disco, electronic, J-rock, and synthpop into this cinematic atmosphere that feels tailor-made for big emotions. Lead single Biba Diba is funky, infectious, and one of the most meaningful singles I've ever heard from a VTuber nonetheless. Beneath the fun instrumental, it's about breaking free from expectations and redefining yourself, something that feels especially more powerful coming from someone whose identity is often reduced to an avatar. I know people have their reasons to hate Awake, but I actually love how crazy it is. I feel like distorted synths and heavy drums are really supposed to overwhelm you. It captures emotional restlessness better than some overpolished songs ever could. Kirigoto scratches that emotional J-rock itch perfectly. Moonlight is pure comfort, one of those songs that instantly lifts your mood. Zion deserves a special mention because it was composed by Yoko Shimomura, who's the one who composed some of the Kingdom Hearts, Street Fighter 2, and Final Fantasy 15 songs, so no wonder this sounded so epic. This entire album completely shut down my previous beliefs of whether or not this VTuber field can produce some impressive pieces of work. Shinsei Mokuroko isn't about being stuck with the VTuber label, and she proved that all you need to do is care about your artistry to earn the great respect of a listener. This is chronically online electronic music, of course I was gonna love it. I Love My Computer taps into early internet nostalgia in a way that feels like Nana is going into one giant time machine. She captured a time when technology felt exciting and slightly dangerous, when procrastinating through the internet still felt somewhat magical. The sound leans heavily into EDM nostalgia, bright synths, bubbly vocals, house drops, dubstep textures, and it all makes for one hell of a time. London Song and iPod Touch already put you in a flashback to when electronic music dominated the world. iPod Touch is painfully specific in the best way. She cutely imagines this iPod Touch with the yellow Pikachu case, the pirated FL Studio in her search history. Call it corny all you want, it'll just tell me you didn't have a childhood. I can also love this album for how fluid it is. There are just some great transitions that hit you like a train. I was really impressed when iPod Touch transitioned into Fuck My Computer, and then I read the lyrics and wow, she deadass made the ultimate Reddit mod anthem. Info Hazard touches on the uglier sides of growing up online. Sing Good feels vulnerable and hopeful, and someone needs to tell Nina that she can sing good, at least better than me. By the time this album ends with All at Once, it feels like shutting down an old machine for the last time. A moment that feels messy, emotional, but you feel grateful for what it gave you. Look, I don't want to sound like an oddball, but god, this album is perfect for reminiscing. Nina is not necessarily framing the narrative as I need my computer like I need human air. It's actually quite a complicated relationship, but it's still a sweet tribute to the childhood that shaped her into the daredevil of an artist she is today. We went from a K-pop group to English albums to Japanese to now Vietnamese. So forgive me if I butcher some of these pronunciations. Phuncan Lane once again proved why she's my favorite Vietnamese artist in the game. If Cytopia felt like falling in love under neon lights, Zumut Van Ngoy is what comes after. Screw funky summer vibes, let's create a dark, heart-wrenching, atmospheric indie/alt/dream pop therapy session. This album was inspired by the Swan Lake Ballet, which goes through toxic relationships, emotional dependency, and the slow process of losing yourself. So her singing is definitely gonna feel heavier. Grief is the price you pay for love, drops you into all the regret. Feng's voice sounds like someone trying to stay composed while falling apart, and man does she try hard to not release herself from this hell, even though she absolutely needed to. Hien Tu Phuc Phang and Kok Ngoy explore imbalance and emotional exhaustion. They both capture what it feels like to give more than what you're getting. Then we have Kok Block, Get Your Mind Out of the Gutter, one of my favorite singles she's ever released. I didn't know I needed her voice on a straight metal instrumental, but she can really pull it off. These closing tracks don't offer easy resolution, but rather just reflect on what's left after the damage. The strings and high-pitched beeps in MDAO are the cherry on top of a production masterclass in complete anguish. Tainluk's dreamy vocals are a nice touch to what is definitely my favorite song here. Feng ends by reflecting on how she fought to try and fix the pieces of a broken puzzle, but she has to come to terms with the defunct fate of their relationship. If you're a fan of artists like Beach House or the Cocteau Twins, I highly encourage you to give this Vietnamese girl a shot. So you went to Google who Gyubin is and realized she's 19 years old, then you wondered, what the hell am I doing with my life? Park Gyubin is genuinely unreal for her age, and what makes it even crazier is that she's already been doing this for a long time. She started uploading covers on YouTube back when she was still in elementary school, running a channel with her younger sister. One of those covers, Psycho by Red Velvet, blew up to over 1 million views when she was only 14. That alone would have been enough to launch an immediate idol career. Not long after, she became the youngest contestant on the Idol survival show Top 10 Student. Music companies came knocking, group offers were on the table, and usually at that age, you definitely want to take a bite. But Gyubin said no, cause she wanted to pursue a solo career. And I must say, in an industry where group debuts are usually the safe path, that decision takes guts. It's no secret creative freedom doesn't come easy in K-pop, so knowing its value that early is honestly impressive. It probably wasn't comfortable, but she handled it with great patience. Fast forward a bit to January 2024, and Gyubin officially debuts by releasing Really Like You. How the hell is that song such a banger? I didn't think her approach of unfiltered puppy love could move me so much, but I found it to be bright, catchy, and ridiculously charming. Mind you, she was only 17 at the time she wrote that song. She followed it up with Special and Satellite, the latter even getting recognition from a Fox station in Seattle. She made some songs for the Motel California soundtrack, and finally, in February, she dropped her first mini-album, Flowering. Yes, I put a 5-song K-pop EP at number 10 over multiple longer, more ambitious projects, and no, I'm not apologizing. Apparently 5 songs were all she needed to steal the show. Flowering feels like a love letter to classic K-pop, especially that warm melodic Gen 2 era, but filtered through her own personality. She was only 18 when she wrote these songs, and somehow every single one of them could comfortably sit in a top 30 K-pop list for 2025. Like You 100 was constantly on repeat for me early in the year. The pop rock sound is addictive, the guitar melodies hit hard, and her dreamy vocals glide effortlessly over everything. I love the way her voice roughens slightly during the bridge, and the smart wordplay with 100 meaning baek or back in Korean is a cool touch. Evergreen and So Yeah Love both lean into more of an R&B sound with gorgeous harmonies that Gyubin makes magical by sticking to classic K-pop fundamentals. Bright, emotional, and ridiculously singable, her pen game here is no joke. But when it wants to be, you get a song like Oops, which sounds like it walks straight out of an old girl's generation era, sugar pop goodness and all. Yes, I know the ya bit is hella goofy, but it works cause damn it, it feels natural for young Gyubin. And then there's Born to Love You, simple acoustic ballad under 3 minutes where Gyubin pours everything into the performance. It's the simplest emotional conclusion to the whole EP, but it couldn't be more fitting. The realization that this affection that she's been singing about, she can't question it anymore. All along, it was her fate. I'm glad that the K-pop genre went through the evolution it did to grow massive around the world, but Flowering is a project that shows that the genre is at its best when it remembers where it came from. I know some of you might be scratching your head at what the hell this list is becoming, and I'm grinning my ass off because of it. I know how this looks. A debut Japanese goth metal album from a literal anime band at number 9? You're damn right. Ave Mujika comes from the Bang Dream universe, which is a multimedia project that started as a manga and somehow evolved into an anime, rhythm games, live concerts, and fully realized bands. Each member is voiced by a real-life musician and voice actress, all representing fictional characters. Sounds super weird on paper, but lo and behold, they released a full-length project, and it's one of the most compelling metal albums of the year. Completeness is dark, theatrical, and emotionally loaded. Despite having multiple vocalists, composers, and influences, Ave Mujika establishes a clear identity, one that's heavier, more spiritual, and much more darker than other Bang Dream acts. The album is only 28 minutes long, but it packs a lot into that runtime. Kill Kiss opens the album with pure drama. Riko Sasaki, who plays Dolores, immediately sells this daredevil energy that fits perfectly as the anime's opening theme. Orchestral strings tease you, then everything explodes into rapid-fire guitar riffs, tempo shifts, and controlled chaos. What can I say, man? Japanese guitar melodies are just built different. Georgette Me, Georgette You is a piano ballad that feels almost suffocating. Dolores is trapped in a dance she doesn't fully understand, and she's drawn to a love that both heals and hurts. Imprisoned 12 just so happens to have one of my favorite music videos of the year. The hand-drawn animation, the imagery of wings, cage, and obsession, the way metal guitars collide with soaring vocals during the chorus is breathtaking. Crucifix X might be the album's most striking moment musically. The organ work alone deserves a thesis. There's a sense of determination here, a search for meaning and alienation, and that guitar solo is easily one of the best of 2025. Then the band somehow tops itself with Octagram Dance, and everything turns into a nightmare. Heavy drums, tortured vocals, haunting background chants, they made a whole-ass horror circus ritual. Alter Ego brings in bass lines that feel almost Nirvana-inspired, and then Musica Kailistis blends orchestration, synths, and harmonies into a cinematic outro. If you want a more complete experience, watching the anime and music videos will definitely help. The symbolism adds depth, but even without it, completeness stands out on its own as a fascinating full-length metal project. I might as well take this time to encourage y'all to listen to their latest singles. Sophie in particular is unbelievable.
I'm already dead and see the
Turns out when you lose your frontman, you're still capable of making pretty good music. Isaac Wood's departure just days before Ants From Up There released definitely left a massive void in Black Country New Road. His songwriting and delivery were central to their identity, and replacing that wasn't going to be easy. For 3 years, the band experimented and stumbled in anticipation to see what would be next for the band. And in 2025, we got Forever How Long. And it might just be better than Ants From Up There. Produced by James Ford, this album feels much more cohesive and emotionally expansive. Where Ants From Up There felt like staring into dark clouds, Forever How Long feels like sunrise, not naive optimism, but rather a new beginning in the dawn of day. Tyler Hyde, Georgia Ellery, and May Kershaw step fully into the spotlight, and they bring in a colorful burst of womanhood as opposed to the old man yells at cloudness of their previous work. The production leans into more colorful art rock, sounds much more playful and warm while still delivering emotional gut punches here and there. Besties opens with harpsichord textures that immediately set the tone. Georgia is able to make one-sided love feel comforting with her voice. The Big Spin with May Kershaw's bizarre vegetable metaphors is simply infectious by the melodies alone. Salem Sisters ramps up the tension with constant tempo shifts, which gives the song an anxious energy that perfectly matches the subject matter. Then there's a stretch from Two Horses to For the Cold Country, where oddly enough, my most played song from that bunch is probably Mary. Instruments being minimal to make way for devastating storytelling is just something I can't get enough of. For the Cold Country feels like an entire medieval epic condensed into one single track. The strings build relentlessly as the night sheds violence and aggression, finally reaching liberation in the wonderful outro. We get another acoustic tempo changing blockbuster with Nancy Tries to Take the Night, and as if the lyrics couldn't get more astonishing, this is about a sex worker's journey of becoming pregnant and then committing suicide. Forever How Long and Goodbye Don't Tell Me thankfully close this roller coaster of emotions on a more gentle note. As they say in the latter song, I've fallen in love with a feeling, I fell down a hole at a speed at which I do not know. That pretty much sums up the up and down emotions that I had listening to this album. John Michael and Anthony James have been building quietly for years, dropping numerous standalone singles and mixtapes, and in 2025, when they finally came together for a full-length project, they went for the throat. They might still be under the radar, but their ego trip feels anything but small. In a year packed with heavy hitters like Freddie Gibbs, Jid, Clip, Saba, Wu-Tang, Mobb Deep, and McKinley Dixon, Ego Trip turns out to be my favorite rap album of the year. It takes an old school approach and executes it with an overwhelming hunger to succeed. Anthony James' production is drenched in soulful samples and warm textures that reminds me of the college dropout era, while John Michael raps with the confidence and sharpness of a Call Me If You Get Lost by Tyler the Creator. Mix that together and ask me, how are you gonna skip a single song on here? John raps like the rent is due on every verse, packed with self-reflection, faith, ego, trauma, independence. The feature list is stacked. Kennedy Rose puts up a double-double on Don't Save Me and Nobody, while Lareezy sounds like he's fighting for his life on the mic. Take No More explodes with thunderous emotion as John reflects on family trauma, alcohol, and self-destruction. Keep track of the shadow boxing counter all you want, cause it doesn't end there. Anthony then emulates his own Lord Knows beat with One Way, which is ironic because Kid Tokyo literally has a verse that disses Drake, but besides that, he is incredible. What is also ironic is the fact that a song named Ego Trip is where John gets closest to God. Jazzy instrumentation, church-like tones, heavy drums, it all comes together as he addresses people questioning his faith. I encourage y'all to listen to the strong emotion displayed on Preacher, definitely my favorite song on here. I love the continuous screams of Preacher and how Michael glides through this beat effortlessly. Colin comes in here with the best feature verse regardless of whether he was out here spreading friendly fire or not. Michael's voice and the drums on World's End absolutely pierce through your soul. The psychedelic feeling I get from his bars is just something that I cannot explain. He takes all of his trauma and lays everything onto this one song. Sunday Morning Genesis is the great calm after the storm. It's an outro that'll make me look back at this project with great memories whenever Michael does start embarking on the new path he talks about here. Simply put, this is a mind-blowing monster of a rap project that deserves more credit than it actually gets. Pick up the phone because years of speculation have finally come to an end. Four of Spades are back in business. The OPM industry was absolutely starving for the band's comeback ever since their previous releases back in 2019 and 2020. These four rock stars brought back a nostalgic folk rock sound that was inspired by the calm and vintage aesthetic of the 70s. And with the music landscape in the Philippines growing a big attraction to classic vibes and relatable sing-alongs, their success was basically set in stone. Amidst the famous pandemic of 2020, the band would announce a hiatus that went on for a long 4 years. Even with this and suffering the absence of Unique Salonga's departure, the support did not die down. The demand for a reunion would only grow bigger in the years to come. Their two biggest love bomb anthems, Mundo and Come Inside of My Heart, became some of the most popular modern hits in OPM history, each with over 300 million streams. And this only made fans even hungrier to see how the band would bounce back. Finally, in mid-July, Four of Spades released their comeback single, Aura, and everybody I knew lost their minds. The hype for the next Four of Spades project had officially begun. 3 singles later, I had the feeling that this new era would be the best the band had ever sounded. Lo and behold, the release of Andalusia finally comes, and I was right. They evolved from the clap 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 sound by leaning into more lively nostalgic rock, but in a way, it doesn't feel stuck in the past. If you've ever wondered why Eraserheads get called the Filipino Beatles, you'll hear their fingerprints all over this project. There's an almost Tame Impala-esque feel to the production that feels timeless in a genre like OPM. Dada feels like the band welcoming their returning fan base into a new chapter, and it starts this sense of familiarity that runs throughout the album, especially in songs like Paru Paru, which leans into classic Filipino slow burn romance. Zilid's delivery is gentle and charming, which matches the Garden of Butterflies feeling that the song possesses. Consensya brings in some of the best guitar work the band has ever done. It captures that loud anxiety of love, the fear that someone you care about might be slipping away, which has felt like such a cliche theme in OPM, but if anyone can pull it off without sounding overdramatic, it's Four of Spades. I still remember the surreal moment when Aura released. Seeing Unique back in the mix after 7 years, running through fields with his boys in the music video, it felt like reconnecting with an old friend. The song itself is dreamy and comforting, like the band is reminding us that this world they built together never really disappeared. Tangerine Boulevard acts as a calm instrumental breather, which is quite the odd placement next to the angriness of Karma, but still a welcome moment. The album closes strong with Rewind and Suliranin, the latter blending hopeful psychedelia with tight harmonies and a gorgeous bass line. Andalusia is an amazing body of work that shows how much broader the band's range has become. A great example of an OPM reunion done right. You're telling me a man who used to make FIFA 15 videos and KSI diss tracks made a 10 out of 10 album? I guess the simulation really is glitched. In all seriousness, Quadeca's growth as an artist has been nothing short of remarkable, and Vanisher Horizon Scraper feels like the moment where everything really clicks. It's only his 4th full-length project, but the ambition here rivals artists who've been doing this for decades. I know I technically ranked another rap artist over Ego Trip, but can I really call this a rap album? There's a lot of genres that make this sound massive and restless, pulling from folk, art pop, hip-hop, electronic music, and Quadeca embraces imperfection instead of smoothing it out. Every track feels like a part of a larger journey, following Quadeca as he sails into the sea, chasing meaning and slowly disappearing along the way. No Questions Asked is one of my favorite opening songs of the year. I love how it just throws you into isolation, like you feel right beside Quadeca, stranded, surrounded by your own thoughts. So if you're thrown straight into the fire, why stop there? Waging war and ruin my life. Quadeca places his anxiety meticulously and both do a great job at layering tension, building gradually to these bursts in production. The strings on the lead single Godstained are beautiful, his vocals are full of wonder, great symbolism of finding a bottle in the sea to search for meaning, only to find the emptiness in the reflection. At a time like this deepens that dread, capturing the fear of wasted potential as the production sways like crashing waves. There are moments of relief like Monday, but his paranoia always seems to creep back in. That's why Unnatural Causes push him toward acceptance, until Thunder explodes with raw, defensive aggression and makes for the album's most visceral moment. The Great Bakunawa featuring Danny Brown is about a Filipino dragon, so you bet your ass I was locked in. Danny's verse cuts through this beat like lightning. It might just be one of his best features ever. From there, the album slowly collapses inward with Foregone and Casper, both swelling with terrorizing restraint. The waves grow louder, and it ends with no one left to save Quadeca, and he finally drowns to his death beneath it all. Vanisher Horizon Scraper is such a heavy listen, but a beautiful one nonetheless. Give Quadeca his props. The amount of effort put into visuals and cohesion alone deserves respect, and the execution makes it unforgettable. I think I've reached the point where if someone came up to me doubting the vocal talent of Yama, I'd feel the need to slap a bitch. I understand the circumstances for most people when it comes to discovering her music, but the thought that people are not aware of her talents actually has me scratching my head. I thought about my 2024 list and how outdated it had become, because I then discovered Awakened Build by Yama and I almost threw up, dog. Then I crashed out after realizing I also snubbed I Lay Down My Life For You and Imaginal Disc. But that's a topic for another day. What I will not take back is my opinion on Yama's fourth full-length project, Semicolon. This came out in March, and I went back and forth debating if it was actually going to be a top 10 lock for me, and then I came to the conclusion that this album just had to be produced with 90s heroin. Toreada is wrapped in warm synths and delicate percussion. Yama immediately shows off her tremendous breath control and emotionally precise lyrics, then film kicks down the door with its vibrant energy, packed with claps and layered beats, giving Yama space to deliver one of her strongest performances on the album. Echo leans into a more retro rhythm, and those sustained high notes are nothing short of addictive. Burn featuring Words brings in a rock edge with explosive pre-hooks and catchy back and forth chemistry. Muse and Origin is the nastiest J-pop wombo combo today. Then there's Vinyl, where funky retro production from Taka Perry meets her smooth R&B sensibilities. And then beneath all this brightness, there's an undercurrent of inner struggle that never fully disappears. The album slows down beautifully with Raincheck and Drop, leaning into introspection and longing. Drop in particular hits hard, especially paired with its visual storytelling. The title track closes the album in the same way that a semicolon would actually end a sentence. Instead of ending the story, Yama chooses to pause, to breathe, reconnect, and keep going. The name Yama always brings a smile to my face. The word itself means mountain in Japanese. Through every mountain of challenges Yama has faced throughout her journey, she's always been about resilience and being human. Will is undoubtedly her greatest strength. It's clear she has a ton of it to persevere and express herself through her music. What, you thought I was done being a J-pop mark? Heart is a project that completely caught me off guard when I first listened to it. Even with strong singles, I didn't expect all of these songs to be this emotionally overwhelming. If Aimyon and Sayuri were put together in a blender, this is what you'd get. And if you know me, that's about the highest praise I can give. Rayona has always had a darker edge to her music, shaped by her inclusion in anime soundtracks and her trembling, vulnerable delivery. When she came through with this album, I was absolutely feasting. It really feels like this is her version of Heard There's Good Pasta. She writes songs that balance softness and destruction in a way that feels painfully honest. The title track was a wonderful standalone when I first heard it, capturing the push and pull between hiding your pain and still wanting to be seen. The disease called life leads into heavier rock, confronting life itself as something diseased yet unavoidable. Alternative continues that intensity masterfully, mixed with whispered vulnerability with sudden bursts of belting. Then the album softens with ballads like Rubbish and Heaven in the Rain, both tragic lullaby-like ballads that feel intimate and just straight up devastating. Rubbish might just be one of my favorite Japanese songs of all time. Omelette Rice is the longest on the album and one of her most personal songs, with lyrics big on self-destruction, cutting herself and throwing her mom's omelet rice, but still expecting to feel alive in all of this. This type of honesty makes me super uncomfortable. Yeah, then okay, scratch that. Tell me why she follows heartbreaking cycles with bombastic metal cuts. Forgive me if this sounds wrong, but Gigi and Debris both sound like Green Day songs. Rayona is filled with a relentless attitude and even sprinkles a few moments of nice English vocals. R.I.P. is the closing theme for the anime series Arknight's Perish in Frost. Her band combines jazzy trumpets and saxophones with an impressive electric guitar melody. For a song titled R.I.P., it sure sounds cheerful for no reason. She composed End of Days for the intro to Arknight's Rise of Ember, where she intensely oscillates between pleading for salvation and craving further destruction. Simply put, this girl can be a bit of a psycho. She can be tender, furious, fragile, sometimes all in the same song. I find her to be one of the most emotionally compelling voices in J-pop right now. I cannot recommend this album enough to y'all. This was the album I was waiting for the most, and honestly, my life hasn't felt the same since I first heard it. I remember listening to Hurry Up Tomorrow for the first time in a food court after school, just sitting there with friends, headphones on. It was a healing experience for me. This is Abel Tesfay's final album as The Weeknd, and considering how much his music has shaped my love for music, he's my favorite artist of all time. I couldn't have imagined a better way to close this chapter. It's Abel confronting what the Weeknd persona actually means to him. 22 songs give you the feeling that this would be a bloated track list, but the madman managed to make all 22 songs unforgettable. I was ecstatic when I finally got my hands on the official Wake Me Up release. I was vibing to the Thriller sample and Abel's fresh new vocals, but then when that transition to Cry For Me hit, I knew from there Abel was not here to fuck around and play it safe. I love Metro and Mike Dean helping bring in those toxic Echoes of Silence vibes, but why stop there? I Can't Fucking Sing to Sao Paulo to Until We're Skin and Bones has to be the nastiest 3-song combination of his entire career. This tracklist doesn't dare to give you breathing room to pause and let it sink in. If Abel was gonna go out, he was gonna go out swinging, and he was going to make you feel everything. Baptized in Fear is some of his darkest writing since Kissland, telling this paranoid story of almost drowning in a bathtub. And then this man really transitioned this song into Open Hearts, and I lost it. The album just became classic once that happened. And then just when you think things might slow down, he dives deeper into Pills, his inner demons, making Cherry 22 spaz the fuck out, and then bringing in Florence and the Machine and Travis fucking Scott on the same song. And if that wasn't enough, there's the 1-2 punch of Enjoy the Show and Giving Up on Me, where Abel manages to do the impossible. He got Future in his feelings. I love the healing run of I Can't Wait to Get There to Niagara Falls. Timeless took over the world, of course, but there's a reason Niagara Falls stayed in my top 5 most listened songs. And then the hardcore EXOs finally got to bear witness to the official release of Take Me Back to LA. If you know, you know. I tapped the screen on first listen and thought, this is one of the greatest moments in music. Mike Dean's drum and synth work here is genuinely unreal. I'll say it confidently, this is a top 10 Weeknd writing and vocal performance ever. It perfectly captures that numb longing, the knowledge of what Hollywood did to him, and still wanting to return to the dream he once believed in. From there, the album moves towards its ending, what some people may call bloated, but to me, it's more than necessary, because if Abel was gonna kill off the Weeknd, he had to show the full descent. Knowing how much of a Scarface fan Abel is, there was no other producer other than Giorgio Moroder to come up with the perfect background for Big Sleep to begin foreshadowing the resurrection. Give Me Mercy and Drive are somehow the most hopeful songs he's ever written in 14 years. Then we get to the final stretch. Hold Your Heart, The Abyss, The View from Halfway Down. The final collaboration with Lana Del Rey. Red Terror honoring his mother's escape to Canada. Without Warning being the grand epilogue to the actual Weeknd persona. And then the title track. He sums it all up. What more does he have to say? The Weeknd destroyed himself to have one of the most successful careers in the history of music, but at this point in his life, his soul should watch every past remnant of himself burn to finally be free, to see light, to see heaven, and when everything finally fades into that gust of wind, Abel Tesfaye is finally at peace. The cherry on top is having the gust of wind make a perfect transition when crossfaded with his first official release, High for This. Abel has left the Weeknd persona to be in eternal darkness, but it lives forever through his incredible legacy with his fans who supported him through thick and thin. When an album is built up through so much and perfected to this degree, it will go down as a history-making moment in music. And yet, I don't think it's number 1. Yes, if you know me, that should sound insane. I did not give my favorite artist of all time and one of the greatest retirement albums ever the number 1 spot. In any other year of the 2020s, this would have easily been the case, and I thought if an album was to go head to head with something so perfect, it had to be unbelievable, awe-inspiring, a mind-blowing gem that created a new standard that no one could touch. If it was going to be better, then Hurry Up Tomorrow, the album had to be generational. But honestly, I just know in my heart that this feels right. This right here. This is what you call music. I didn't think the same artist who made Motomami could reach a creative peak like this. After her feature on New Woman by Lisa, I wasn't really planning to give Rosalia a chance in 2025. Not cause I hated her, I respected her talent, but I didn't think I'd turn into a fan. When Lux dropped in early November, I thought it might land somewhere in my top 40, maybe top 30. I thought maybe just a few Spanish pop bangers would do the trick. Boy, was I not expecting what I actually got. Thank the heavens my curiosity got the best of me. Rosalia took all the mainstream pop star allegations and decided to stand up and be the one to burn all of it to the ground. In one of the biggest clusterfuck years for mainstream artists in pop, the music gods blessed us with an absolute gift that should be talked about for decades to come. I don't mince a single word, Lux by Rosalia might just be a top 5 album of all time for me. The type of love and care that she wanted to put into every single song should be the type that even the best in the industry should strive for. What I didn't realize before listening to this album is the fearlessness that she's had over the years to push the boundaries of what she can make. Rosalia herself said it best. If Motomami was minimalism, Lux is 100% grade A, unfiltered maximalism. No sample loops, 14 different languages that she learned to write lyrics for each song without rest. The lyrics are inspired by the stories of female saints all around the world. You have to give it to Rosalia for having the guts to expand on her Latin, electronic, and reggae roots, all to give us a classical crossover masterclass. This album is a glorious work of art. Her voice comes in with bliss on the first moments of Sexo, Violencia y Lantas. Right off the bat, I was lit up and impressed with the smoothness of it all. But when they start jump scaring midway through and her voice starts to burst into ascending notes, I was like, yes, I'm getting something that sounds spiritual and adventurous. You can only wonder what this world that she has put herself in can do for her soul. Then it transitions into Reliquia. Inspired by the concept of relics and Santa Rosa de Lima, the violins come in with gorgeous pizzazz. We're going to all these different places with this. It's a beautiful tale about scattering sacred pieces of her life across the world. Divinize is sung in Catalan and English, and at this point, it felt illegal to pause. Suffering becomes ecstasy and empowerment, and that idea lights up like a firework and continues on the chaotic sandbox that is Porcelana. I fucking love this song. The ecstasy now becomes apparent divine sacrifice. Rosalia takes a nod to Rionen Genso, who burned her face to enter a monastery, and the production mirrors that extremity perfectly. Symphonic chaos, reggae touches, nerve-wracking refrains from Dougie F. Girl even tries to speak Japanese in the bridge. Then comes Mio Cristo Piange Diamante. My god, where do I even start? I'm sounding more Espanol as this goes on. I have only cried to music once in my life. This song almost made it twice. Forget the fact that I don't even speak Italian. This is one of the greatest vocal performances I've ever heard. The pure divine emotion that I felt listening to these vocals soar and soar. The way she made this messy love feel so sacred, overwhelming, and glorious. I was struggling to keep it together. It's just the most minimal piano and orchestra. And I was like, the fact that this song exists seems too good to be true. How the hell is one person even capable of coming up with this? I too almost cried Diamonds Like Christ in this song. Song of the year, no way you could ever match that. And what do you mean the next song has Bjork and the London Symphony Orchestra on it? Berghain opens up the second act seamlessly blending pop and opera in the loudest and most extravagant of ways. There's these sudden bursts of these powerful German chants. Rosalia's voice is almost cinematic at this point, singing about this love consuming her with a lot of unique metaphors. As soon as the drums come pounding in, Bjork comes in with this angsty feature detailing the hopelessness of this love. It's made all the more shocking with what Yves Tumor shouts in the outro to cap off one of the most jaw-dropping pop singles we've heard in a long time. I'll fuck you till you love me, and then that sentence is manipulated to actually sound like, do you love me? To which Rosalia directly responds, no. I thought La Perla was a sweet and playful sing-along that was structured more like a pop ballad. So imagine the shock on my face when I realized it was a hilarious diss track to her ex-fiance. What could have been the biggest eye-roller moment of the whole album, but I love Rosalia's nature in this song, I couldn't be mad. Mundo Nuevo and De Madrugada Russian by a Blur. Fun, theatrical, unstoppable. De Madrugada is a banging Ukrainian cut produced by Pharrell Williams of all people. I can't stop moving to the bass guitar for Dios es un stalker. It packs in a lot of obsessive grooves and a nice key change before the disgusting transition to La Yugular. I marked out for this song as someone who used to live in Saudi Arabia for a little bit. The gorgeous imagery tying into the Quran, the jugular vein to symbolize finding Allah being close within your blood. Sauvignon Blanc is sung in French and reflects divine intoxication with heavy restraint. La Rumba del Padrón brings flamenco joy, full of strange forgiveness and storytelling. And then finally, Memoria and Magnolias. Both songs are about the idea of self-reflection and identity. Carmino brings in an incredible feature with her writing all the lyrics and back and forth chemistry. It's like a personal conversation sung in Portuguese about her own recollection, which will go down remarkably as this continues with Magnolias. And this song, man, it could make a perfect epitaph. She embodies the burial of Indian mystic Anandamayi Ma, where instead of being cremated, her body was interred in flowers, and it's one of the most famous instances of omnipresence, the spiritual attribute of someone's presence being felt no matter where you go. Rosalia emotionally imagines her funeral the same way. She cries for her closest friends and enemies to throw magnolias and take her death as something not to mourn, because she sees beauty in the fact that life is not immortal. To quote Manuel Molina, "Better nobody cry, it's more beautiful to sing." And that puts a bow on the most tremendous swan song for the best album of 2025.